Launching the Antiquities Act of 1906, President Teddy Roosevelt created the nation's first national monument designation, Devil's Tower National Monument in Wyoming. The important purpose of this act was to preserve, for all Americans, significant pieces of the country's history. Ecology, geology, and beauty. But unlike America's great national parks, size is not important for monuments. Historic sites and other units of the national park system. Monuments are typically established by presidential proclamation, chosen as their personal memorials of the most special parts of this great country. However, occasionally these units of the park system are established by the direct action of Congress. Some are big, some are small. Some garner large budgets and staff, others next to none. And some eventually gain national park designation. America's treasures tell the story of the nation's past and present glory. The National Mall, the premier civic, spiritual, and symbolic space of the nation. A great swath of green in the middle of America's capital city, Washington, D.C. The mall itself stretches from the foot of the United States Capitol building to the Lincoln Memorial on the banks of the Potomac River. Amazingly, the National Mall and historic parks contain more than 80 historic structures and over 150 major historic parks, squares, circles, and triangles. It is the place where Americans can feel and experience their national heritage. Since 1933, the National Park Service has been entrusted with maintaining, preserving, and interpreting these cherished symbols of America's over 225-year love of freedom, liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness. Among the countless historic structures under the park's care, 5 stand out because of their national significance and architectural splendor. The Washington Monument, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and of course, the White House. However, two of the great icons of liberty in the national park system are not in Washington, D.C., but separated from each other by 1,700 miles. The Statue of Liberty National Monument in New York City, and Mount Rushmore National Memorial in South Dakota. I looked up at the mountain. The result, I was in awe. George, Teddy, Tom, and Abe were the faces that I saw. An iconic symbol of presidential greatness high in Dakota's Black Hills. If you're any kind of a history buff, it'll be one of your greatest thrills. This beautiful national memorial is Mount Rushmore, South Dakota. When you see these four granite faces, you won't regret one iota. Ralph Taylor, poet. Sunrise is the best time of day to see Mount Rushmore. Resting at the base of Mount Rushmore is Keystone, South Dakota, a small town that greets Mount Rushmore's 2.5 million visitors a year. Mount Rushmore National Memorial was officially dedicated in 1991 by President George H.W. Bush. However, it had been under the national park's jurisdiction for almost 60 years, since its construction in 1933. A 5-minute drive from Keystone up Highway 244 reaches the entrance to the memorial. At the top, granite columns greet the visitor, a taste of what's to come. Further down the main pathway is a spectacular parade of state flags. Flags that frame the first peak at the faces of Mount Rushmore. Each step down the pathway gives the visitor a new angle of the carving. Suddenly, the narrow pathway opens up, and the Grand View Terrace approaches. Here's the first unobstructed look at the four presidents. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. Four larger-than-life men that made America the bastion of freedom and democracy it is today. Below is an amphitheater that hosts a variety of shows and concerts, and a museum dedicated to the construction and preservation of Mount Rushmore. For the adventurous, there's the presidential trail that takes the visitor up close and personal with the mountain carving. Each angle revealing a different perspective. Along the trail is the sculptor's studio, where the original model, sculpted by the memorial's visionary, Gutzon Borglum, can be seen. It all comes full circle as you reach the Grand View Terrace once more. Inspiration overwhelms the visitor as they take their last look at this extraordinary sculpture. The surrounding Black Hills are home to many other spectacular wonders. 30 miles west of Mount Rushmore lay Jewel Cave National Monument, a monument dedicated in 1908 by President Theodore Roosevelt, who, in a poetic twist of fate, is one of the 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. Jewel Cave is the most complex and perhaps the longest cave in the world. It is a labyrinth of underground catacombs estimated to stretch an astounding 5,000 miles beneath the earth. It is a seemingly endless network of narrow passageways leading to one spectacular chamber after another. Above ground, enjoy Jewel Cave National Monument's hiking trails around the nearly 1,300-acre park. 30 miles to the southwest is Wind Cave National Park. One of the oldest national parks, Wind Cave was established in 1903, also by President Theodore Roosevelt. The almost 34,000-acre park contains 30 miles of surface hiking trails. Then explored the 140 miles of discovered cave passageways. And just to the north of Wind Cave is Custer State Park. South Dakota's largest and first state park, Custer State Park was founded in 1912 and has an astounding 71,000 acres. It is, by far, the best place in South Dakota to spot a huge variety of wildlife. The first vision for Mount Rushmore came from Doane Robinson to promote tourism for South Dakota. Interestingly, his idea was to carve famous Western heroes like Buffalo Bill Cody, Chief Red Cloud, Lewis and Clark, and Sacagawea into a nearby formation called the Needles. Then famed sculptor Gutzon Borglum entered the picture. Believing that the granite of the Needles formation was too soft, he insisted on carving the harder rock of the nearby Mount Rushmore, named after a prominent New York lawyer, Charles E. Rushmore. Perhaps inspired by the mountain's Lakota name, Six Grandfathers, Gutzon had the brilliant idea to make the carving of America's greatest presidents. It was an idea that would create not only the symbol of South Dakota, but the entire country. Rod Evans is a South Dakota historian. He knows these faces well.
The four presidents that are up there, Washington chosen because the father of the country, Jefferson because he was a visionary and expanded our country greatly with the Louisiana Purchase, and of course Lincoln saved the country. Teddy Roosevelt did a lot of great things. He was a trust buster. He had the big stick theory where, that the United States should be a power.
It took Borglum and his nearly 400 workers 14 years, from 1927 to 1941, to create the four miraculous carvings visitors can see today. George Washington's face was dedicated in 1934, Thomas Jefferson in 1936, Abraham Lincoln in 1937, and Teddy Roosevelt in 1939. All inspirational leaders who embodied the glorious fight for liberty and freedom. How far would you travel to find a new and better life? If you answered, whatever it takes, you echo the feelings of the 12 million immigrants who were welcomed by Liberty Island and passed through Ellis Island from 1892 to 1954. 2 islands, but one national treasure. Statue of Liberty National Monument. The Statue of Liberty itself, a gift of friendship from the people of France to the people of the United States, was dedicated in New York Harbor by President Grover Cleveland in 1886. Then the statue and the island on which it stands, now known as Liberty Island, were together proclaimed a national monument by President Calvin Coolidge on October 15, 1924. And in 1933, the National Park Service assumed oversight of the monument. Inscribed on a metal plaque in front of the Old Lady of Liberty are the words of a new Colossus, the immortal poem by Emma Lazarus. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning in her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. From Battery Park, located at the southernmost tip of Manhattan, your trip to the Statue of Liberty is about to begin. Step aboard one of the departing ferries. Looking back, Lower Manhattan diminishes as the ferry approaches Ellis Island. Ellis Island's Federal Immigration Station opened its doors in 1892. Located at the mouth of the Hudson River between New York and New Jersey, Ellis Island saw millions of newly arrived immigrants desperately looking for a new life. In fact, it has been estimated that close to 40% of all current U.S. citizens can trace at least one of their ancestors to Ellis Island. Imagine you are one of the arriving immigrants, stepping ashore on Ellis Island during the peak years of 1900 to 1914. Years that saw 5,000 to 10,000 people pass through the immigration station every day. For a moment, re-experience the emotions of what that would be like. Ahead is Liberty Island. Liberty Island, formerly Bedloe's Island, is a small island off the southern tip of Manhattan in upper New York Bay. It has an area of about 12 acres. Although the monument is within New Jersey waters, Liberty Island and a portion of Ellis Island are within the territorial jurisdiction of New York State. The city of New York acquired the island in 1758, and it was ceded to the state of New York in 1796 and to the federal government in 1800. Interestingly, Fort Wood was built there during the War of 1812. Once on the island, walk around the base of the statue and learn about the symbolism of Lady Liberty's tablet, the 7 rays of her helmet, and the broken chain at her feet. Take in the beautiful statue from every possible angle. The Statue of Liberty's stone pedestal, designed by famed architect Richard Morris Hunt, was planned to complement the statue rather than overwhelm it. The top of the pedestal is roughly half the height of the entire structure. The pedestal offers panoramic views of Ellis Island, New York, and New York Harbor. Since pedestal interior access is limited, advance reservations are highly recommended. If you gain access to the pedestal of this statue, hear the history behind the efforts that went into actually erecting Lady Liberty in her current location. It was to be an enduring symbol of the long friendship between the United States and France. French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi was commissioned to design the Grand Lady. France would build and design the statue part, and the United States would complete the pedestal. Bartholdi needed an engineer to address the structural issues presented by the sculpture, so he hired Gustave Eiffel of Eiffel Tower fame to provide the necessary engineering solutions for getting the statue to stand upright. Raising the funds to create the Statue of Liberty was difficult. France needed a national lottery to help secure their end of the bargain. In the U.S., things were much slower. Auctions, various forms of entertainment, and fights were held to help raise money. Finally, Joseph Pulitzer decided he needed to get the attention of the American people, so he took out an editorial in his newspaper, putting pressure on the rich to secure the final American dollars for the important icon of freedom. By August 1885, the American money for the pedestal was secured, and in April 1886, construction was completed. In France, the statue had been finished for 2 years. In order to get the statue to America, it had to be broken down into 350 individual pieces and packed in 214 crates. They arrived in New York Harbor in 1885 aboard the French vessel Isère. A year later, there she was. the great and enduring symbol of American freedom and liberty that has shone brightly ever since.